What can I tell you? You know, you start a company called Happy Grasshopper, you might like a song called Jump. So, hey everybody, it's 3 o'clock. It is Thursday, March 8th, and I am absolutely stoked because today I get to introduce you to one of my favorite people on the planet, Kristan Cole. She has done something absolutely extraordinary, and we are going to cover a ton of great content today. So let's see here. We got Bill, Bob, Bridget, David, Donna. We got a ton of people registered today. I think we've got about 1,600 people that have registered for today's webinar. So those of you who are on with us now, who are able to join us live, congratulations for that, because this GoToWebinar account only allows 500 people to attend live. So if you're here, congratulations, you are definitely in the right place. So how's everybody doing today? Are we good or are we great? Are we even better than that? Or are we just like, Dan, come on, shut up. Introduce Kristan already. Let's get to this stuff. So let me know that you can see me and hear me. Oh, great in the snow, Bob. Good to hear it. Where's the snow, Mr. Holder? Where are you hiding out today? New Hampshire. Ah, the great nor'easter is certainly cluttering up your life right about now. That's for sure. Let's see. I saw we've got Christy here from Billings, Montana. Bridget from Phoenix, Arizona. Bunch more people are entering now. This is pretty typical here at the start of the webinar. So all you folks who are just logging in, welcome. I'm glad you're here. It's a wonderful Wednesday. Women's Day, International Women's Day is what it is today. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We've got so much good stuff to cover. Let me go ahead and prepare your minds and your bodies for what's about to happen here today. My guest, who I'll be introducing here shortly, is a very special and powerful person. Her name is Kristan Cole. And if you don't already know Kristan, you're certainly going to be impressed by just how amazingly talented, thoughtful, and caring this person is. She really is doing good work out in the world, and I'm personally impressed by her, and I'm confident that you will be too. Now, during our session today, I do want to just take a moment and acknowledge that today, March 8th, is Women's Day. And I'm a guy who's just totally fortunate to be surrounded by powerful women. My wife is a powerful woman. My business partner is a powerful woman. I have a super powerful sister, right? And our guest today, of course, is a powerful woman as well. And I'm super excited to be able to introduce her to you here again in just a few moments. So let's talk about what we're going to get covered today. Right? Today is all about one special important topic, and that topic is growth, right? Growth is the topic today. And it's not enough just to say, hey, I want to grow, right? We have to really understand when we should grow and why we should grow it. And for all of us, it's also very important to just get the if out of the way as well. Because let's face it, growth is not for everyone. It just isn't. Expanding into a different market, going from a solo practitioner to having a team, you know, and maybe just growing the volume of work that you're currently processing yourself. These are all different stages in your growth cycle, and we've got to be really deliberate in planning our future. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves stubbing our toes more often than we'd like to. So we're going to talk about how to get out of production. That's a very, very important thing to understand. And we're also going to talk about how to find and keep talent for your team. Even as in Kristan's case, you may be thousands of miles away, right? Think about that. I mean, how amazing is it to be able to actually grow your team, to know your organization is not just humming along, but is actually actively increasing, both in terms of number of people, in terms of number of transactions, and in terms of volume, dollar volume per transaction. There's so many different dimensions where it's really important to be deliberate, again, about your growth. And Kristan is going to talk to us about all of those things. She's also going to help us steer away from these 8 mistakes that are so common. You know, I like to think of them as the hateful 8. And as a guy who's a serial entrepreneur, right? I mean, this isn't about me, but you should know that I've started 7 companies. Happy Grasshopper is my 7th company. I've had 4 consecutive appearances on the Inc. 5000. I've been awarded all sorts of awards from different industries. And every step along the way, I feel like I've learned a little something that makes those next steps much more likely for success, much more powerful. The format today is very important. We're going to be running something called an open Q&A, and that means it's up to you in the audience to make sure that you're engaging here with myself and with our guest. So first question, guys, can you hear me, right? Go ahead and use that chat box. I know that some of you can, but keep in mind, folks, we're going to be moving quickly, and if you want your questions answered, you've got to get it in the chat box for sure. So add those questions there as we go through. And then one last point before we begin. I want to thank today's sponsor. Our webinars are now sponsored. How cool is that? And today's sponsor is my good friend, Laurel Starks. She is the founder of the Divorce Real Estate Institute, where they are providing amazing education to help real estate agents and other real estate related professions serve the family law community more effectively. So her website is up there at dreinstitute.com. I would encourage you all to make a note of that. Anyone on the call who's considering whether or not you should tackle that divorce listing, or what to do when you learn that someone has a divorce going on for a property you're already handling, this education is something you'll find invaluable. And now we're getting to my favorite part of the webinar, where I get to talk about my good buddy, Kristan Cole. So who is this wonderful person, right? Well, Kristan Cole, she is the founder of the Kristan Cole Real Estate Network. She has expanded from tiny little Wasilla, Alaska, into real estate locations throughout North America. It's very impressive. There are only 15 here on the screen, and yet there are more that she's also expanded into. And one of the things I absolutely love about this person is that she's committed not just to doing well for herself, right, but to doing good in each of the communities that she serves. She's created something here called Kristan's Home of Hope. And for every transaction that they have, they carve off a portion of their commission, and they make sure that that money is being used to actually help children in need. Right, so that's a super honorable thing to do, and I'm just, again, really privileged and pleased to have her here as a guest today. Now, Kristan, as much as she does for other people, as busy as she is serving all these different real estate communities, she's not so busy that she can't take out time for a webinar like she's doing today, and for events that she teaches around the country to help you. So she runs something called Growth Word, which is all about helping you, the real estate professional, learn how to expand your business. So what we're doing today on the webinar is kind of a scratch the surface look into this huge topic of what it takes to really expand your business. And here's some information that I'll just pop on the screen here for you real quick. You'll notice that she actually has an event taking place later today. So she's super busy, and I'm just absolutely honored that she's able to join us for today's call. So Kristan, it sounds like you've joined the call. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you perfectly.
Well, fantastic. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, gosh, me too.
So what do you have popping for us today?
Well, we have an enormous number of questions that are pouring in here to the chat. So I'm going to go through here, and I'm going to make absolutely sure that we get all of these answered. And I want to give the audience just a little bit of perspective, like, how are we connected, right? And I pulled up some pictures here. This is kind of fun. This is from some of the events that we've participated together in the past. You might recognize that picture in the center was from your expansion summit in Phoenix last year. And and those surrounding pictures, that was a family reunion. We interviewed you on stage. That was really wonderful of you to take the time to do that. So let's dive into the topic here. I'm going to go ahead and open this for questions and answers. and I've got a bunch of them queued up here for you. So the first one that I'm going to ask is from Jay Leclerc, and Jay is asking about who to hire first, and more than that, but how to do it with limited funds. Like, how do you know who's the best candidate for the position?
And so I'm assuming he means first in expansion or first in a hub team.
It's not clear from the question. He may be.
Or does he say?
He doesn't say in the question.
For whatever reason, I cannot hear you right this second, so I might have to dial in as well, Dan. Just to make. Oh, there you are. I sure can.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, we'll move on to another question here for sure. Okay. So, the first group of questions that I'd like to focus on with you have to do with acquiring the right talent, because that's a critical thing, right? And actually, now that I think of it, let's go a step further back from that. Let's answer the big question of, should I grow, right? Why should I grow? When should I grow? What are your thoughts about that?
I think most of us, if you go all the way back to starting as a brand new agent, we typically want to hire someone when we have no more capacity, when we have no more hours in the day. And the first hire, I can tell you, is the absolute hardest. It is the scariest, it's the hardest. And what I can say is, after you've made your first hire and it's gone well, what most people don't understand is that you actually end up not only getting some of your time back, but typically your first hire is going to give you a 4x return. So, it allows you to do more production. And my experience has always been, like, when I went from an $8 million a year jump to 11 million, and then to 17 million, 22 million, and then it went like to 32. So at first they were $4 and $5 million a year jumps in volume, and then it jumped like 10 million. So there is, it's kind of gradually and then suddenly, but don't be afraid to make that first hire. Most of us wait way too long to make the first hire, and we're in so much pain when we do that we don't follow the hiring process very well because we are in so much pain. My view is that you should make that first hire. Honestly, when you're about 50 units is what I would say is when most people find themselves burning out. They're exhausted. They're working 18-hour days. So you might want to make the first hire sooner than that. But I can just say, if you're doing 50 transactions and you don't have any help, boy, oh boy, making that first administrative hire. And how do you do that? And what do you have them do? Here's my suggestion. Put a yellow pad next to your phone and next on your desk. And every time you do something that you really never want to do again, write it down on that list.
I love it.
And I can guarantee you that the end of 2 weeks from doing that, you'll have a complete job description. Mm-hmm. And if you can just get those things off your plate that you don't like to do anyway, you're going to be more productive and do the things that really matter. So I call it, instead of a to-do list, I call it a stop doing list.
A stop doing list. I like it. An undo, never do again list. That's a good thing. Well, so when it comes to finding that very first person that you hire, let's just jump a little bit into the future, right? So we've really increased our production volume. Then we're probably looking at growing our team locally before we'd look at expanding. Is there a certain size team you feel someone should get to before they tackle expansion?
Sure. I mean, I don't know that it's a certain size or a certain level, but certainly you should have profitability. If you aren't highly profitable in real estate already, expansion probably isn't the next logical growth point for you, because you need profit in order to move into another expansion location. Now, you can certainly do it fairly inexpensively, but at the same time, you never want to put your hub business, meaning your original location, at risk. Mm-hmm. So Gary would say, I always look to the market center as the model. So in the market center, being an OP, we always want to have 3 months of approved expenses saved. And I'm even more conservative than that. And I like having 6-month approved expenses. So if you know what your budget is for that additional location, for most of us, it's between $4,000 and $6,000 a month for the additional pieces for that location. Then to me, I'd want to have about $36,000, 6 months of it saved and put away, so that I have the profitability to sustain that business as I grow it. Because as most of us know, you go into even just another geographic location. Let's say you want to make your farm a bigger size. We know that it takes about 5 to 6 months for that new location or new geographic farm to actually start producing consistent business. So knowing that, when you're ready to go and expand, number one, your lead should be taking you there, or talent should be pulling you there, and you should have the profitability to actually go there. Does that make sense, Dan?
It does. It does, very much so. And that's a really great point. I'm glad you made that, because I think sometimes people will look at people who've achieved a level of success that you have, and they'll just want to start with that expansion first. And, you've got to build this real solid foundation from the ground up. You can't get to the skyscraper level unless you've got a really solid foundation and a bunch of those success stories locally.
Well, you bring up a really good point, Dan, because Gary Keller says you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. And so if that's true, if you've got 2 agents, let's just say they have the same volume, 50 million, and agent A and agent B look identical for about 5 years. At some time about the 4th year mark, one of the agents will go, geometric, vertical. Mm-hmm. The other agent will just continue along in that straight path. What's the difference between the 2 agents, Dan? The difference is one of them built a foundation and the other one didn't. So if expansion is really done right, done well, and profitably, you've got to have a great foundation. Building, even if it takes you 2 or 3 years to build that foundation, do that first. I really feel like our organization, we've been expanding now for 5.5 years, but I really feel like and Gary said this to me the other day. He said, watching your business this year is going to be really exciting. He said, because you have hit that, you've gotten to that point where you're going like that. And so building that foundation is the key to all of it. It's kind of like this. Would you want to place an ad I say ad in the newspaper, heavens, who does that anymore? Would you want to spend money on lead generation and then not have anyone to take the call or to nurture the lead? Would any of us do that?
Of course not.
Right.
Well, I'd hope not.
Well, we hope not. So it's the same thing. In expansion, you don't want to be in a position where now you're growing in super growth mode and you don't have the foundation to support that growth. So it's the same thing. You've got to put the foundation in first.
So it's the hub and the spoke model. Now, I'm fortunate to have you as a client, and I have several other expansion leaders as clients, and they all seem to have a sense of a core competency. For some, it would be their ability to generate leads online. For others, they've got, like you do, for example, great prospecting resources to find those listings in new markets as you expand. Would you offer any particular guidance to agents as to which way they should go, or is it more about just where they're already strongest?
I think it's about, I think too many times we make the mistake of trying to go down 15 lanes of lead generation instead of going down one and doing it really well, or maybe 2 or 3. And so I think, expanding upon what you've already done well makes some sense. And then partnering with people, honestly, Dan, just like your company, to help you to be that leverage for some of that follow-up or for some of that nurturing. I think that can be a really positive piece to growth, is partnering with other folks who do that really well. You do that really well. You really help us nurture the client and get them to raise their hand faster than if we were trying to do it ourselves. So you can leverage pieces of this. And so partnering with other folks who do things better than you do. Don't try to do everything. Don't try to be the person that
Sure. Yeah.
does all pieces of the business. Do focus on what you're good at, and then partner with other folks to help you with those other pieces.
Awesome. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure we talk about, because just looking at the list of people who register, we've got a core group of people who come to a bunch of our webinars. And I know that a lot of them are at that stage where they're thinking, you know, expansion is something I'd like to get to, but first I feel like I really need to promote myself out of production. So what are your suggestions to help an agent do that?
Well, you know, most of us, and I'm going to be candid here, have 2-1 things for a short period of time. And here's what I mean by that. And Gary says, and your life's going to be a little messy when that happens. What I mean is, you can be building expansion while you're still in production, and then there will be a point, and you'll know when it is, that you'll have to make the leap. And so should you be nurturing your replacement and training your replacement and all of those things at the same time? Yes, but you don't have to wait to do one to get into the other. You can be doing them at the same time. It just means that your life is going to be a little messy for a while.
Yeah, that's okay. The messy middle.
If you're independently wealthy, then yes, you can get out of production and get into expansion. But just understanding that several of us are taking our profits and putting them back into expansion, especially in the early years. And so most of us have built this sequentially, not simultaneously.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's an old adage that growth eats cash. It's a universal business truth, right? It doesn't matter what industries a person is in. When it comes to growth, there's always expense first. It just, you know, it's kind of the natural order.
It is.
So,
It is.
you know, one of the challenges that anyone looking at expansion has is really finding and keeping that talent. And in your case, I know that you travel around quite a bit. You know, there are times when you're just on the other side of the world from your folks back home.
Yes, right.
So, you know, let's talk about that, right? Culture is so important. How do you maintain that when you're on the other side of the planet?
There's not one way. And if you do have one way, pretty soon that one way doesn't work anymore. What I mean is that it is something that is, it's not an event, it's a process. So you are always looking for ways to build culture. You're always looking for ways to keep people engaged. And that is something that is never ending. It's always the piece that we have to be mindful of. Chris Suarez said this to me at family reunion. He said, people leave people, people don't leave missions. So do you have a mission within your business that's big enough that the other people in the organization feel like they can fulfill their big why working with and through you? That is a big, big piece.
That is absolute gold. That is amazing.
So for us, we spent a lot of time really creating our big why. And in our network, when you buy or sell with the Kristan Cole Real Estate Network, you're supporting safe housing for at-risk youth. Safe housing for at-risk youth can look a lot of different ways. It can mean helping the people at Teen Challenge get a new air conditioner put in their car so that they can transport children in the heat. So it doesn't mean building another house. It means supporting those different charities. Like Gary says, be strategic about your giving. So our strategy is to have our mission and our big why big enough that everyone in our company can fulfill theirs inside of ours, and that our strategic giving is big enough that it matters, that it really matters in the community. And so when we chose that big why, what we determined and knew right away is that would transcend any location we went into. There's always youth that needs supported, youth that are at risk in every city. We have 864 children in Wasilla, Alaska, who are homeless. If there's that many children in Wasilla, that means it exists everywhere. So for us, we wanted our vision for our charity to be big enough that everyone could participate at whatever level they wanted to and feel like they're fulfilling their big why. And that really, I think, is a that is a big cultural piece. And of course, there's lots of ways to build on that culture. You know, we just had a big client party, and we had one of the charities that we support, My House, there speaking at the event, and we gave them a big check. And when we did, another person in the audience offered to match my donation. And so all of those things matter. What our group in Alaska just did an event together a couple of weeks ago where they went to a safe house and had to figure out how to get out of it. And they had to do it collaboratively. So it can look so many different ways, but what I can tell you is that if that piece is missing, it's going to be very challenging for you to continue to grow, because millennials want to be everyone wants to be part of something bigger than just selling another house, but especially millennials. They have to feel like they're part of something that's making a difference.
Well, I like that quite a lot. I'm curious, what do you do, or how do you figure out that someone isn't a good fit? We always focus on making sure they're a right fit, but how do you know they're not a right fit?
That's a great question. So you can teach skills, but values are people's values. And what I can say is that most people, when they start interacting with anyone in my company, they're going to know right away whether or not they're a fit or not. It's not really whether I have to figure it out; they figure it out, because if they will, like for instance, if I teach a class and somebody comes up and wants to talk with me later, generally that's because they've already identified that they have similar values to the values that the people in our company have. And so it's not so much, Dan, whether I have to figure it out. It's really being authentic and transparent with who you are all the time, and it will attract the people who value the same things you do.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So when it comes to attracting these people, what have you found is very effective to recruit people to your expansion teams?
The most important thing really is, who do you know that I need to know? So the most successful recruits that we've had are people that were recommended to us by other people. For instance, Billy, who is in Orlando, a team leader, actually sent me an email, and he said, there's this gentleman we've been interviewing, and he's with an independent company, and I think he'd be really fabulous for your expansion team. And so it was an introduction. So those affiliate relationships, those relationships that you have with other people, those are the best places to find great, or to actually attract great recruits from, is because here's how to explain it, Dan. As an agent, would I prefer a referral, or would I prefer having to call expireds and for sale by owners?
Right, sure.
I don't know about you, but I would like the referral. And so Mark Willis said this one time. He said, if you're going to Craigslist and places like that to find talent, that's like calling for sale by owners and expireds. And out of 100, you're probably going to get 5 candidates, maybe. But if you are calling the people that you're in relationship with, that you're in business with, or that you are in partnership with, and letting them know how fast you're growing and the talent that you're looking for, they're not going to send you a dud, right?
Yeah.
They're going to recommend to you really talented people. And usually talented people already have a job. But here's what we know. Seth Godin says 77% of all employed people hate their jobs. So if they're employed and they're being recommended by someone else and they don't like their job, then the conversation really is a simple one. And calling them and letting them know who said, if I was looking for talent, Dan, I had to call you. Anybody going to turn down a call like that? So if I do, Dan, and I said, Dan, our company is growing very fast. We have big goals, and we're looking for a talented candidate. And Dan, my friend Jeremy told me if I was looking for talent, I had to get on the phone with you. So when could you be available for us to sit down and talk about an opportunity?
Yeah, that's well structured.
That's really the structure. And then when you sit down, can you cast the vision? Here's what I've also discovered. Especially in the initial conversation, people don't really want all the detail. What they want to know is, what is the vision of this company? And just like me, my company, the reason that Gary Keller needs to grow is not because Gary Keller needs the company to grow. Gary needs the company to grow because there are people like you and me and all the other people in the company that want to grow. So he's willing to allow it to get as big as it needs to get to make sure we all have opportunity. Well, it's the same way for me. I'm an entrepreneur inside of his entrepreneurial world. Mm-hmm. And people are an entrepreneur in my world, inside my entrepreneurial world. So you're really saying and offering, can you articulate a vision to people that shows them the opportunity in your organization, and can you paint that picture for them? That's really the first step, is sharing with them who you are, what your values are, what your mission is, what your big why is, and where you're headed. And then you show them an org chart and say, what would you like to do? What would you like?
That. I like that. I took Gary's Empire Builder class, and he talked about the importance of having your 5. Like yes. Those 5 key direct reports, and they are really domain experts, right? The thing that they do is only their thing to lead in. I'm wondering, do you look at having your 5 in each of the areas you expand into, or do you just have a global 5 that manages everything else?
A global 5, because if you think about it, Gary still has 5 people that directly report to him. Well, he had 5 people 30 years ago. But now those 5 have 5, and those 5 have 5, and those 5 have 5, and now we've got 170,000. So it's the same thing for me. It's very difficult to have more than 5 people reporting to you because we only have so much span of control. We only have so much excess capacity, and so. But then those 5 need to have their 5. So, for instance, I am not coaching, training, and consulting all of the expansion partners in our organization. There's no way for me to humanly do that. So, but I have one of my 5 who is doing that very thing. And so that's the thing, is to have my 5 are doing that, globally. It's me taking that vision globally, certainly. So I do a call once a week, Dan, with our entire organization. It's on Fridays. And today I am not doing that call because I'm here with you all. But Jeremy, my director of growth, is leading that call today. And so every Friday we have a call system-wide, and we talk about a lot of different things. But throughout the week, there's individual calls to them, for instance, from our productivity coach. There's training on Wednesdays for everyone in the organization. And then I talk to the regional directors on Mondays. So again, while I don't abdicate my responsibility to other people, I do certainly leverage other people so that they are the ones doing the training, the leading and coaching of every single person in our company.
Okay, great. So there are a lot of questions flying in from people on the subject of compensation. Now that we know who to hire and what to look for, they're like, well, how much should we pay them? How do we compensate our admins, our ISAs? Do VAs make sense in this model? And I'm sure you can answer all of those questions. So why don't we start with just simple comp plans? Is it the same for each of your expansion areas?
It sure is. That's a big mistake, I think, that early on some people made, was they had different comp plans for different locations, and that's just a disaster. So that I would say, definitely your compensation should, for expansion partners, for agents, should be similar across the board. And so ours are identical. Now, when it comes to admin and positions like that, of course, it sometimes is different because, of the cost of living in different places might be different. So can the investment in people in Alaska cost or be a bigger expense than it is in other locations because of the cost of living? Certainly. But I think what people are really asking is, how do you compensate an ISA? How do you compensate a director of growth, a director of sales, a director of lead gen? And at the end of the day, usually it's what Gary would say is that your management your cost of that management structure to lead that expansion should never be more than 15%. Now listen carefully, of the company's of the company dollar of me, the expansion agent, not the company dollar of the market center and not the gross GCI, but it should never be more than 15% of my company dollar, meaning my company. And so what you have to do is you really have to take your org chart and you have to look out, beginning with the end in mind, and make sure that whatever compensation you're putting together works there, and then work it backwards. Most people pay way too much money in the beginning, and it's not sustainable when all of a sudden you are scaling across many locations and a large number of agents. So you have to think through that, and you have to have those conversations up front, or what happens is at the end of the day, you are compensating in a structure that's not scalable, and you have to do a takeaway. Dan, takeaways don't work. People leave typically with takeaways. So you really want to think through, is this sustainable long-term, and is this scalable long-term? And then bring it back to where you are today. So would you like me to give an example of that?
I would.
So let's say, for instance, that you are compensating your director of expansion 5% off of the gross GCI of the company dollar. So let's just say that there is a transaction. Let's say the commission was $10,000, and let's say that your expansion partner is going to get $5,000, and me, the Kristan Cole Network, will get $5,000. That means that expansion director is compensated 5% of my $5,000. So basically $250. And so when you think about that, now let's take it out where we're going to be. Our goal is to be in 10 or 100 locations with a gross of 1,000 and a net of 500 agents by the end of 2022. So does that work when you have 500 agents in your system? Well, if you have 500 agents, would you agree with me that I'm probably going to need a human resource division? There might be some divisions that I need then that I don't need today.
That makes sense.
So what you have to account for is that the expansion director may be receiving 5% of the company dollar side of the GCI today, but all of a sudden when we need to hire a director of HR, or we need to hire a vice president of productivity, that maybe now the expansion director gets 3% and each of those other two get 1%. So you have to have that conversation up front. But here's the thing. Do you think the expansion director would like 3% of 500 agents doing 3 transactions each month, or 5% of 50 agents doing 3 transactions each month?
Yeah, the growth matters.
So do you want half of a watermelon or 1 grape?
Makes sense.
So that's what I mean. You have to have those conversations up front to know that as you scale, the expansion director's piece of the management may get diluted because you've hired additional people that you need at scale. And if you have that conversation up front, then it's not a problem when you need to restructure because you need to make another hire. If you don't have that conversation up front, that's when there's a problem.
Gotcha.
Does that help?
Go ahead.
Does that help, Dan?
It does help. Thank you. There's a follow-on question from Scott Davies. You mentioned director of lead gen. Are those people compensated on gross sales, or are they compensated on per lead generated?
So the director of lead gen is in my company is actually a salaried position. And I believe, in some of the others, it is as well. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be a small salary and a percentage of the, the production. It certainly could be. But that's just the way that we had designed it in our company. But again, I hired proven talent, so that salary was a pretty big salary. So it can go a variety of different ways. For instance, the director of sales could be someone that maybe receives a $2,500 a month salary plus 5% of the company dollar side of the GCI per agent that they're overseeing. So it can be all you have to do is you have to say to yourself, does this work at scale? That's the question. Does it work at scale?
And ask it again and again and again to keep absolutely making sure it works at scale.
Right.
So the next question is about VAs. Are you using VAs in your organization?
Yes. And, I don't, we actually don't, well, they are VAs, but they're very, very much a part of our team. And so we treat them as such. One of them has come to the United States and spent time with us. So I have three. Grace has been with me, I believe, 5 years, Cher 7 years, and I believe Nikki's been with me 3 years. These are all people with four-year educations, four-year college degrees, and yet they can make more money working with me than they can for instance, one of them is a registered nurse, and he can make more money in my company than he can working as a registered nurse at the hospital. And so these people are very loyal, and they absolutely have a high degree of suitability, and so therefore there's very little that gets missed or falls through the cracks. They do some heavy lifting in our expansion world behind the scenes for all of our expansion partners, and they're just phenomenal human beings.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know, well, do you know Daniel Ramsey at My Outdesk?
That's where
Is that who you're using? Okay, he's
Yes.
an awesome guy, and I've got a lot of respect for the way his organization helps connect people here with people in the Philippines who are really very talented.
Very
So,
talented.
yeah, we're at a point in our growth at Happy Grasshopper where we're considering working with VAs. So that's awesome. Thanks for that tip there.
Love Cher, Grace, and Nikki. I want to give them a shout out because they're amazing.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about your event later today, Growth Word. I'd like to know, there are people all over the country who are on this call right now, and some of them are probably asking, well, where do I find out more about that? When are the next events? What can we tell them?
Well, probably that, right now, I didn't know you were going to ask me this question. Great segue. Your company actually is creating my event website as we speak. So I want to say very soon they'll be able to go to one place and see all the locations and all the tools and all the products and any courses that I'm teaching. In the meantime, I know this is archaic, and this is why we've hired you guys to fix this for us. We posted on Facebook with an Eventbrite link. They can certainly email us, support@thekristancolenetwork.com, and we'll be happy to get them a list. But honestly, we are heavily in the West here in March. So we're going to be at Folsom at the end of the month. We're going to be in Scottsdale here in about 2 weeks. And then in April, we're on the East Coast. So April and May, we're in Florida, and we're in Massachusetts. And then we're back over here to the West. So we're all over. But what I can tell you is growth is sequential. And when there becomes a point where you need to leverage other people's resources that are more talented than you are, and we now are at that point, and that's why we hired you all to create our website and all of our back end pieces for that coaching, training, and speaking engagements.
That's fantastic, and also awkward for me to learn about that here for the first time. But when you talk about having your 5, I have my 5, and I love to know that this is happening, and I wasn't aware. So awesome.
Yeah. I think we just pulled the trigger maybe 3 or 4 days ago, Dan, and had our first call with your young lady who was amazing.
Oh, awesome! That was probably Celeste. And she is amazing, and all the folks on the call who are our members will certainly know that. She's awesome.
Well, and just to comment on that, so what actually happened is Jeremy went out on a search to find the right people to help us do this, and so it wasn't me having to go find it. And he came back to me with his recommendations, and at the end of the day, he believed that your company was the one that could get us where we needed to go the fastest. Certainly the very fast. I mean, your timeline compared to some of the other people, it was dramatically shorter. It was important to us. And then also just the quality of who you're doing business with.
Well, that's awesome. That's really great
So
to
one of
hear.
my five went out and found it and brought the recommendation to me. I didn't give him any predisposed idea of who it should be. I just said go out and find the best so that we can go to the next level. And so that's what I think is important when you have your five, is that's exactly what he did.
Well, I really appreciate that. I know that we help a lot of coaches and trainers and speakers, and we feel really very privileged to be able to help add whatever special sauce we can to help our members share their message with the world. And gosh,
Well, the
yours
cool,
in particular, I mean, there's so much great stuff that people learn. I went out, I saw you teach in Bellingham. I guess that's what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe. And
yes, yes.
I was blown away. There's so much to learn. Like if you've attended this webinar and you thought, oh great, this is something I'm ready to tackle, you're absolutely wrong. You need to go
Yeah.
be with Kristan and really go deep on this. Like there's
So for
no
anybody that's on the call, Dan, that has been to an expansion course before, we just wrote the new expansion course for, I call it the next level of expansion. So if you've been to ESO, now we have a course that's called GSO. G is in George. So GSO, it's growth word systems orientation. It's the next level in expansion, and it's really to take you that next step. Think about this. If you've ever bought a new car, you get a manual that's like that thick that nobody reads until
right.
they have a problem. Then also with that manual, you get a manual that's like that thick, and it's called the Quick Start Guide. So with the next level of expansion with GSO, we have the quick start guide for expansion. We have the full expansion launch manual. We have the pieces in place to take you, to help you build the foundation to really go into multiple locations. And so it's all around really giving you those foundational pieces that it's taken us 5 years to build.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing to be able to share. It absolutely is. And we've got a ton more questions coming in, so let's segue back to those. This is from Douglas Crane. He's asking, talking about your five, do you mind sharing the positions or roles that each of your five are? And do you look to balance skill sets with those that can share your vision? So I'll let you take that first.
Yeah, sure. So with my five, it's so certainly my director of growth, Jeremy, is definitely one of my five. Also, the two team leaders that I have in the two market centers that I own are two of my five as well, Sharon and David. And then in addition to that, I really see my MAPS coach, Mike Fleming, as one of my five. He's been my MAPS coach for 8 years, and he is one of my five, absolutely hands down. And so when I think through this, Allison Bradley has been one of my five, and she has additional opportunities because of that. And so when you look at those five people, so Allison was my executive assistant, and I always teased and said she's way more than that. She's more like a vice president of operations. She's an amazing human being. Jeremy has been with me now 3 years and started as the director of lead gen, and now is, very short order, the vice president of growth for our organization. Faye Humphrey that just joined me this week, and I've been looking for her for a long time, is our new director of productivity. And so she is that piece that will help, really coach, train, mentor all the agents within our organization and get them to a higher level of productivity so that they are getting where they want to go and actually being able to accomplish and financially and otherwise what's important to them. So for me, those make up my five, here today. And I also would just say that, my husband is in many, many ways, he's a bold coach, Denny Grimes. He is the idea guy like you cannot believe. So he gives me lots of great ideas, and I'm the one that goes and rocks it and implements them with and through these other people, of course.
I described you in one of the emails.
And Dan, I want to
go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Dan.
Well, I was going to just tell you, I actually described you as a rock star in one of the emails I sent about this session because, you absolutely are. I think everyone in the audience can tell there's no way to fake this, right? You've either got it or you don't. And Kristen, you absolutely have it. You do. So,
Well, Dan, that's kind of you to say, but what I would say is that it's not without a lot. There's no way I could do this without great people. I always say, the math of expansion wins, or the math of expansion works when you have the right people. So I also want to just share, while Mike Fleming is really all of our fives, I mean, everybody in my organization coaches with Mike Fleming. So the fifth person, if you take Mike out of the picture in terms of being one of the five, the fifth person in my organization that she is the leader. We call her the leader of the Northwest, but she really leads the hub in Alaska and oversees all of Alaska and the expansion partners up there. She's been with me now for 6 years, Christy Mock, and I could not have moved down and become an OP and continue to grow expansion like I did if I didn't have the confidence in her continuing to lead Alaska without me physically being there every day.
That makes a ton of sense. And Christy's amazing, by the way. I had dinner with her in Las Vegas with Bree and Ryan Tollefson. So
Yes.
All my Alaska buddies, we had a great time.
So you talk about relationships, Dan.
Yeah.
The way that I found you was because Ryan Tollefson said, you need to get into business with Dan. and that's when I sought you out. So relationships matter. And then Ben Kenny said, you aren't in a relationship with Dan yet? Silly girl.
I'm so fortunate. Ben was one of our super early adopters. We were probably 90 days old. And I always tease him that I owe him a car. And, Ben, he won't even let you buy him a cup of coffee, right? But last time I saw him, he said, I'll take a Tesla. So,
Me too, Dan.
Yeah, we'll see. So I'm going to circle back here. Douglas is asking about my five also. And, guys, I'm not a real estate agent, broker, team leader, expansion director. I have no real estate experience. I'm a technologist. I'm a marketer. So my five looks completely different than Kristen's. I have a chief operations officer. She's my co-founder, Celeste Grutman. She's absolutely amazing. She is the heart and soul, the backbone of our company for sure. We have Veneer Maynard. He is our lead developer, head of development. Just an absolutely amazing person. On our sales team, we've got Story Sandman. She started with us in the customer success area. So she knows absolutely everything there is to know about how our system works, what snags and hiccups there are for people, and how to smooth those out and make them work great. So in marketing, we've got Alex Martinez. She is just absolutely phenomenal. She's done a great job building content for us and helping our members have funnels that are really successful for conversion. And then one of our absolutely key five is Tara Christensen. She is an attorney by education. She has been a real estate agent practicing in Virginia and Washington, D.C. And now she's our overnight editor. She lives in Australia. So all of our local copywriters, when they're done writing for the day, they turn their work in to Tara. And overnight, she makes sure that it fits the tone and is exactly what our clients actually need that messaging to be. So, those are my five. And without those five people, I just don't see where we'd be able to accomplish the kind of results that we're providing. So, thanks for that question, Doug, for sure. So I'm looking at the time here, Kristen. There's a section here that we need to talk about. We've talked a lot about stuff to do that's important. We need to talk about those 8 key mistakes that people have to avoid. And we have touched on a few of them here so far in the talk. Let's just go and put a big bright red line underneath these. These do not touch electrified fence messages around these 8 things people should not do.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest ones in expansion is that we make it way too complex. When we're building our business in our original hubs, a lot of times the complexity comes out of the fact that we get bored. So we get bored, so we go and make things complex or create more things. And what you learn with expansion, especially because, like it says on our screen, when you're 1,000 miles away, how are you keeping talent, finding talent, and helping them produce? The only way that you can help them do that consistently and help them execute on a daily basis is you have to have simplicity. So what that means is that you can't have these complex systems that everyone at the hub understands because you as a leader show up every day and are explaining it and helping them through it. When there's that lack of you can't be in 5 locations at the same time. So what I learned is, and Gary talks about this too, is you've got to simplify it. And because with simplification brings execution. If you want people to execute at a high level, you have to keep it simple. So you have to help them focus on only the 20% that matters instead of the 100 other things that are shiny objects distracting them at all times. And some of those things are good things to be doing, but they're not the 20%. So simplicity, you've got to avoid complexity. I say kill complexity and honor simplicity, because simplicity is the key. Another huge mistake to make is to go into another location where there's not a valid reason for being there. What I hear sometimes is, well, I want to go into Florida because it's sunny there and I vacation there and it's warm, and so that just seems like a smart thing to do. I don't know that any Walmart executive wakes up and says and makes a business decision based on that criteria. So another mistake is to don't get lulled into a location because of your personal preferences. Treat every decision you make as a business decision. So what would be the good business decisions that you need to make in order to determine if a location is right for you? Well, what's the average sales price? For most expansionists, there's an average sales price that a location needs to be in order for the math to work. So don't go anywhere. Be strategic about where you actually go. Those, because not all locations are equal. And so knowing what that criteria should be for any location that you go into is also key. So another mistake to avoid is crowning someone with a title before they've earned that right. Mm-hmm. So Gary mentions all the time, you should go out and find the right person, and they should be willing to pick up your dry cleaning. And it doesn't mean that literally, although it could, but meaning, are they willing to take a step back to take 4 steps forward? Are they willing to come in at this level, show that they can do the job and that they can excel, and then earn the right to maybe then go to this level? I mean, John Davis started as a loan officer, and then he became a team leader, and then he became an OP, and then a regional director, and so on and so on. So don't crown someone with the title before they have earned the right to actually do the job. And I think we do that way too soon sometimes. So, I don't know if any questions have come in on those 4 things, but those are 4 big mistakes to avoid.
And every single one of them I can identify with to some extent. One of the follow-up questions is, as you're ramping up and hiring these 5 people, like, what do you suggest in terms of sequence? And another person is asking, how do you know they're right early? And I'll speak to that for just a moment here, because you don't always know that they're right. You can't always know that they're right. And yet there's some things you can do to make sure that you're at least ticking all the boxes and giving yourself every shot of hiring the right person. So, I look for affinity. I want someone to want the same things I want. We must have a shared common goal. If we don't, that's absolutely a no-go. I like to work with people who have a similar work ethic. I get stuff done. I move fast. If people aren't comfortable with that, they're not going to work with me. They're just not. They're not going to fit. So we like to find ways to discover that before we've moved too far down the road with an individual. I also am a big fan of the take them out to dinner test, right? When you're hiring someone for one of these key 5 positions, most of the time they're not getting there from, Indeed, right? They're coming through relationships like we've already talked about. And at the same time, they're also likely coming from within the organization. They're
Very
people
true.
who, have proved their mettle and they're ready to step up and have more. And yet, I'll tell you that in my company, I often need to hire talent that's outside of our walls. And, when it comes time to do that, I run through the sequence. They all take a personality assessment. We review that with them thoroughly. One of the things we do at our company is actually drug testing. We're a drug-free organization, and that's important from my perspective as an entrepreneur. I want to work with people who are clear-headed and sharp all the time, don't have any issues we need to worry about. And then the final and perhaps most important thing that I ever do when I'm trying to hire someone is to make absolutely sure to go deep, deep, deep with this person, like layer after layer after layer. When they give you their references, you check them, and then you ask those people for other people who know them, and you go deeper again and deeper again and deeper again. Like, I want to talk to your first grade teacher if I can before we move forward. So what did I miss there? What should I be doing that I don't know to do, Kristan?
Well, and I think you named them, and the other piece, and you talked about it, is doing the life story with folks. That helps you go deep, like you said, and discover, does this person have grit or not? So for us, if we use the initials of our company, KCN, for K, we want people who are kind and humble. And that's really important to us. C, we want people with character, and people who are gritty, meaning, when the chips are down, that you can count on them, that these are people who are loyal to the end and can take adversity and turn it for good. And then with the N, we want people that are nimble. Are they nimble? Can they pivot quickly when there's a challenge? So we're looking for people that are KCN, kind and humble. They have great character. They're gritty and they're nimble and can move quickly. So I think you have to decide what you're looking for. And then Gary would say, even when you've done all the things that you said, Dan, and you've taken them out to dinner as to find out if you have crazy in the building, because they typically bring their spouse. You want to make sure you don't have crazy in the building. And you've done the life story, and you've done the reference checking, and you've done all that. That still doesn't guarantee you a great hire. Now, if they've been referred to you, that's even another plus. Gary would say you need to work with them for 2 or 3 years before you will really know. And I can tell you, after 34 years in this business and learning the career visioning series and following that process, Gary, once again, is exactly right. And that's why you say, the very best hires are the ones that you can hire from within. But when you're a small company, sometimes that's not possible. But I can tell you right now, for the 3 key hires, for 4 of the key hires that I have right now, they have all either come from within the company or they've worked for me in a partnership outside the company. And that allows that gives you a higher probability that they're going to work out after you've hired them.
Absolutely fantastic advice. Thank you so much, Kristan. I'm looking at the time here. We've exhausted our allotted hour, and yet there's still more questions pouring in. Do you have a hard stop? Can you take one more question?
I can take one more question, and we should do this again soon, Dan. It's fun.
I would love that. I'd love to do that. So this question's from Rebecca Ganyu, and she asked specifically, what are you looking for in an expansion lead?
An expansion lead, you mean a lead meaning a person, or a person to come into our company, or are you talking about a buyer or seller?
Oh, yeah, I would say, I mean, I don't know for sure, but Rebecca, tell us if I'm wrong. I think you're talking about that first hire in an expansion market. Someone.
I see.
Yeah.
So there's several schools of thought out there. Some are like, I only want experienced people as expansion partners. Some would say, I want new people for all of the reasons that you can think of that a new person would be great. Some people say, I only want experienced teams with lots of volume. And what I would say is, I am open to all of those, because we have an organization that if you're new, we can certainly train you, coach you into productivity. If you have great values and you already have a rocking organization and you want to join us because you want to be part of something bigger, greater, we have a model for that. If you are someone who maybe wants to build a 7th level team, believe it or not, we can help you do that too. We have a person in our organization who's already doing that. So we're not necessarily looking for whether they've been in production, and that's really not the criteria. The criteria for us is back to the KCN. It's really who the human being is, and finding out from them what's important to them, and then asking myself as the question as a leader, can we get them where they want to go? Because it's not about really what I want. It's what do they want, and can we get them where they want to go? And can we get them there faster than they could have gotten there by themselves? And can they enjoy the ride a little bit more?
Life is a heck of a lot of fun, and being successful is not as hard as it is, or as hard as it could be, when you're surrounded by a group of like-minded people who share a common goal. And, that's what I'm hearing come through time and time again. The more I get to know you, I see over and over and over that you're really just a genius at attracting talent and helping these people make their life mission part of achieving yours. So, Kristan, congratulations.
Thank you. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
So based on what you said, here's what I would say is important. Who you allow into your life matters. The 5 people, you are the average of the top 5 people that you hang around. And so if you aren't getting where you want to go, you might ask yourself the question, do I need to get new friends? And I don't mean that in a negative way whatsoever. I don't mean that you toss your old friends away. But maybe you start spending less time with those folks and more time with people who've gone before you, who've done it already, and that you can keep learning from. So ask yourself, Gary says, who do you want your mentors and prophets to be? And what he's really asking you is, in terms of financials, who are you going to follow? In terms of spiritual, who are you going to follow? Who's your mentor? Who's your prophet? And when you start hanging around people that are smarter than you, that have gone places that you haven't gone yet, a rising tide floats all boats. Those people will pull you up, and you become the leader that you need to be in order to attract the talent that you want. There's no a shortcut around that one. You've got to go find people that are smarter than you. You just never want to be the smartest person in the room anymore. And that, I think, is probably the one thing that we could all ask ourselves. If we're not hitting the goals that we want to hit, then maybe we need to get new friends.
That's well said. That is well said. So just speaking as a person who, came from a childhood I did not like, surrounded by lots of opportunities to be pulled off path, I would encourage everyone who's on this call to make a difference in someone's life. You have the power to do that. You have the ability to take that at-risk youth and make a difference in their life. You can be that positive force for the people you bump into every day. Gandhi said, be the leader you want to be, right? Or be the change in the world you want to be. We all have the ability to do that. I would encourage each of us to not set that responsibility down. Pick it up. It's important. So, Kristan, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And well, gosh, I know how busy you are. I know you've got this event this afternoon that you're off to. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and bid you adieu. And then I'm going to continue here for just a moment to wrap it up for everyone else on the call. So thank you, Kristan.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Talk soon. All right. So guys, how lucky are we to have Kristan join us today? She is a powerhouse of a human being. And again, I just feel privileged to be part of her world. So let's talk about how I can help you specifically, right? So you heard Kristan talk today about relying on us at Happy Grasshopper for some of our services. And some of you have no idea even what Happy Grasshopper is. So I'm going to take a moment and explain that. Here are the things I can help you with. Planning, strategy, and implementation, right? Unless you have a clear plan, a clear strategy, and a team of people who are going to help you actually implement it, all the good ideas that you have will not come through to fruition. So, they just go off to the idea graveyard and die. And my job is to prevent them from doing that. So when we started our company almost 8 years ago now, it was just a little experiment. And it has grown into a little powerhouse of an organization. We have over 11,000 members that we support. And we support them by providing content for email, for their blogs, for their websites, and now even for their social media. So if those sound like anything that you might need some help with, you're in the right place. We also, as Kristan mentioned, we're building marketing funnels, right? We have the ability to create landing pages for you, to attract and capture an audience, to really generate that demand that you're looking for to help you reach your sales goals. So the way you go from where you are now to where you want to be is really simple. You just go to happygrasshopper.com. You take the assessment that's on our homepage, and then someone on my team is going to reach out and book a call for you with one of my strategists. So together, we'll go through your current business, we'll take a look at it, and we'll highlight those areas where we can add value and allow you to achieve your goals more efficiently. So folks, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And thanks again to Kristan Cole for joining us. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye now.